Right, it's good to have Hackett and Halsey back in harness. Welcome to the Ref Show for this week. Well done to England at the Women's World Cup. Bronze medalists. The ref there made a big call. Well done to her. Also, we'll discuss her performance. Plus, an early look ahead to the next domestic season in England. The Premier League referees list is out, as indeed is the Football League list. We'll be debating that, who should have been in, that perhaps isn't in either case. And we'll be honouring one of the unsung heroes of this great game of football. You see them around the country. They never get properly honoured, but a guy called Brian Bradley, who was Mr. Non-League Football in South Yorkshire, our part of the world, very sadly, along with his wife, died in a car crash, and we'll be paying a tribute to Brian later in the show. First of all, gents, the Premier League retained list is out, as is the Football League, but no real surprises because you tipped us off a few weeks ago. Chris Foyer's gone. Graham Scott, just the one new name, Keith.
I just feel that they've lost direction. It's back to the old story of lack of leadership. It's so important that this churn. It's so important that people like Mason and Jones, Mariner, who at the beginning of the season had a torrid time, and even I was calling for them to go, and not put under pressure. And therefore, to recruit a guy of the age of Scott,
47 apparently.
47 and employed by Mike Riley, I think, as a IT consultant, allegedly, So.
Look, I think he's got the stature, and I think he'll do a good job as a fill-in. But where are the top Football League referees that, they've got to be coming through? I mean, I left him with Oliver and others to take over. He's taken those, but
Are they just not good enough to come through, Mark?
Well, no, I mean, there was talk of this, all these championship referees going through, and we've advocated that that's a great stepping stone for the referees in the Football League, just solely referee championship games, not League One, not League Two. No disrespect to League One and Two, because there's some tough games down there, but it's great grounding for young referees coming through into the Premier League, constantly refereeing championship games week in, week out. And Keith's right, where's our progression planning? Where's our next FIFA referee coming from?
Is that going to come, though, Mark and Keith, with the creation, possibly down the line, of an elite squad for the Championship? Is that
I think there's some funding debates there, aren't there?
I think there might be funding issues, but I think ultimately what you've got to do is have a list. You've got to have the referees available. The old targeting process on referee development, if they're talents or if they're being mentored, is a 2-year cycle. You want to be making a decision after 2 years. 2 years, is he good enough? Is he not? And if he's not good enough, then get the next one. I know that at conference level and below, I see some competent referees. They're young, and I'm saying to myself, why aren't these guys being moved through the system in order to have the opportunity to get to the top? And I don't see that churn.
Because they've not got the right coaches at that level. If you were in charge and I was resigning, come to my age, come to the end of my career, you would have put someone like me down there looking at these guys and getting them through and coaching them and getting hold of them, and bringing them through.
Well, I think that's fine. But what we've seen is, Mark, in last season, we saw a lack of coaching of the elite referees. So the reality is that someone like Alan Wiley, who's a competent individual, good referee, solid citizen, he should have been, in effect, working at the elite level. That is the elite level. Now, yes, in midweek, he can go and see and target individuals. But, you can sit in a stand and you can say to yourself, he's capable of going forward.
But for me, as experienced as Chris Foy is, Chris Foy should not have been appointed to as a select group coach. as you said about Alan Riley should have stepped up. You need to be out of it for 2 or 3 years because they were all your friends the season before, and then you've got to go and make some decisions. So for me, and I understand Chris Foy and Phil Dowd were the only ones that went for this job, but as a manager, you would have made a decision. And for me, Chris Foy comes into the role where Alan was, and you step Alan into that select group coach.
Well, I would
because he's been out.
I would have taken both. Look,
Yeah,
at the
because
end
you've got high rating of Chris Foy, but Phil Dowd, where does that leave him? It leaves him still refereeing. Are you too surprised that he's carrying on?
Well, look, at the end of the day, the referee himself, and on heart, must be saying to himself, the days have gone when I can actually keep up with these guys. Now, we've seen that, and I think and we saw that in Chris Foy. I think it's really sad when these guys who have given terrific service, and make no mistake, Foy and Dowd were excellent referees. They went through the system to get to the top, and they met the criteria that I laid down and the consistency in performance. Age catches up with all of us, and there's a point at which you have to retire. If I had sat there with the selection process or in charge, I would have said, Phil Dowd, I'll find work for you as a coach.
Absolutely.
I want someone like you who doesn't follow the party line. He's a real good man manager, and you need that mix.
Failing that then, that's not happened. So Phil Dowd carries on. Should he have decided just to quit himself?
I mean, I would have said last season, yes, but now I've changed my mind. Now, if he was in charge, okay, I would have carried on. Because he would have managed me. He would have managed me correctly because he knows how to manage men. He's been in that business for years, and he was top at it. Listen, we had our differences, him as a general manager.
Sure did.
But we were still best of friends, and that's the sort of relationship you want in this business. And for me, I mean, he's absolutely spot on. Mike Riley has got no idea, because I've been there, okay, worked under him. He's got no idea how to manage men. And that's the fundamental thing you have to have in that role is how to manage men. Now, for me, Phil Dowd, I would do exactly what Phil Dowd is doing because pick up the money, pass your fitness test. Even if he hasn't passed his fitness test, he still can pick up his money because he got injured refereeing a Premier League game. Right. Now, as I said, Keith would have looked after him. Keith would have found him a role. So then you retire from that refereeing. But for me, Phil Dowd, you carry on, buddy.
It's an attractive position after all. Now, the Football League list, I don't know if Keith's got any observations on that. There's one very old referee on there. That's Nigel Miller.
55. I don't believe. Look, in fairness to the PGMOL, there's legislation, European legislation, age legislation. So it is not easy dispensing with referees. But there is a process here that says we've got 30,000 referees who need coaching, who need managing, who need effective training. And if we cannot find a role for someone who has been a trainer, Nigel was a trainer in the police force years ago. He's a really nice guy. But believe me, I saw him shuffling around the fields of Barnsley last season, and I'm thinking to myself, you're 5 years since you should have retired. He's not going to retire. These guys are just hoping for it. So, Alan, in business, negotiate a settlement.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I mean, I'm not sure if this is correct, but I understand in Spain, they set the fitness test so that you can't pass it once you're over that age of 45. So they make it really difficult for the referees to pass that fitness test.
So will he pass it?
Well, we listen, let me tell you, I've been in a court of law, I've sat there. We're not able to do that because the FIFA standard is the standard. And if Nigel Miller passes that FIFA standard, then he's on the list because that's the process. The difficulty that PGMOL have got to come to within the structure of the business is how do you use people who are coming to the retirement age? Because I'm telling you now, it is dramatically having a devastating effect down below. There is no churn. We're not seeing younger referees.
On that aspect, Andrew Madley.
I was just going to come on to the subject.
Okay, so the floor's yours.
Well, I mean, when we look at, referees being promoted to the select group, and you look at Graham Scott, who's a 47-year-old now, I think, and I don't think he had the best of games at Burnley, because I remember Sean Dyche going ballistic about the amount of cautions. And so you look at Graham Scott, and you look at it, you always do your... When I was coming through, you got promoted if you into the playoff final. You're always up in that top echelons.
Absolutely.
Now, you look at Scott. Did he referee a playoff final? The answer's no. Did Andrew Magley referee a playoff final? The answer's yes. So obviously he must have finished higher than Graham Scott in the rankings. So for me, he's a young referee. Okay, his brother's on the select group, and I watched his performance, and I've seen some of his performances over the season on the Football League as well, and he's refereed really well. So it's like any young manager bringing in a young player into a team. You pull him in, you pull him out, and he's going to St George's. He's getting experience. Promote him. Pull him in, pull him out, and manage him correctly. But unfortunately, we've not got the people there to manage him properly. I mean, Howard Webb retires, okay, and I think in the last 8 weeks of the season we saw an improvement in refereeing standards. So why has Howard Webb resigned? We have to ask the question. We know why he's resigned. We know why he's resigned.
All of this is a big topic, and we've kind of gone into it. We're coming to the end of the first part of the Ref Show, and as weeks go on, we will be returning to all of these subject areas. But in the second part, we have discussion on the Women's World Cup and where the Women's World game goes in terms of the Premier League, a big opportunity. See us for that.